crucible of this horrible, horrible war, which I spent a lot of time in, you're seeing whole new techniques that will be used in the future for national security, for NATO, for the West, and undoubtedly for our enemies as well. I've come to the view that war is actually going to completely reverse, and that the way you do war and the way you do national security will start with robots in the form of drones, air, land, and sea, and so forth. It is my absolute conviction that when this war is over, that Ukraine will become one of the largest suppliers of this new form of war, new form of defense, because the people are really that good. Yeah. And by the way, having spent a lot of time with these people, you cannot imagine the courage of the people at this table. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. I'd like to now turn to Jens Stoltenberg, Minister of Finance of the Kingdom of Norway, and of course former NATO Secretary General, to build on that. Jens, you have extraordinary experience both of understanding the military side of things and now the financial constraints involved. And I wondered if you could elaborate on what for you resolute security for Ukraine implies. What are the nature of the guarantees and the implementation thereof that would actually provide the security that is needed?
Thank you so much, Sani, and many thanks to Victor for hosting this very important event, and again, many thanks to the Ukrainian soldiers. Well, I think what it holds is that we need to not only agree among ourselves on a platform for peace in Ukraine, but we need to do something which is more difficult, and that is to find a way to agree with President Putin. And I met President Putin for the first time in year 2000. He was a newly elected president of Russia. I was a newly elected Prime Minister of Norway, and over the following years I actually worked with him on many different issues. We were even able to make big agreements on, for instance, a delimitation line in the Barents Sea. So the big question is whether we are able to make an agreement with Putin now on peace in Ukraine. And I don't think we can change Putin's mind. His aim, his ambition is to control Ukraine. There's no doubt about that. But I think we can change Putin's calculus, that if the price he has to pay for controlling Ukraine is too high, then he will be forced to sit down and negotiate something which is acceptable for Ukraine. And the only way to get there is to provide military support to Ukraine. That's the only way, because the cost has to be so high that he accepts to sit down and respect Ukraine as a sovereign independent nation. Therefore, I welcome what NATO and NATO allies do. NATO is playing a more important role in coordinating support, thanks to Mark. But I also, of course, know that the only way NATO can, NATO allies and Western countries can provide support to Ukraine is that individual allies provide that support to Ukraine. And I moved from my position in Brussels to a job I had 30 years ago, being Minister of Finance in Norway. Most people move forward, I will move backwards. But I'm proud that the first decision I was part of, the first bill I put forward to the Parliament, was to triple Norway's financial support to Ukraine. Meaning that we now provide $8.5 billion yearly, last year and this year. We are less than 6 million people, but we need to step up. More support to Ukraine is the only way to facilitate a negotiated solution and to end the war. And that's why this is so important. Thank you.
Thanks. When we talk about support for Ukraine, of course, many people wonder how strong is the American commitment to Ukraine? And American government still in the Constitution has 3 branches of government, and we have a very distinguished representative from the first branch of government, Congress. Chris Coons, do you want to give us a sense of the mood in Congress in terms of support for Ukraine?
Thank you. One of the questions I think we should be asking in the United States is, who are these brave soldiers fighting for? Yes, they're fighting for their families, they're fighting for their country, but they're fighting for us. They're fighting for our freedom and our future. This will be defined as a century of freedom when they win. And the United States should be absolutely clear that we will provide uninterrupted, robust intelligence support, military support, and financial support to the cause of Ukraine. I'm here with a bipartisan delegation, Senators Tillis and Murkowski, Senator Graham, who has been furiously texting with me. Don't give him your number if you want to sleep. He is relentless. And I just want to briefly say, many of you know that there is unfinished work in the United States Congress. Next week, we will pass the Defense Appropriations Bill. I'm the senior Democrat on defense and intelligence appropriations. And it will include funding for Ukraine, for U.S. assistance directly to Ukraine, which I believe is an important public signal, hundreds of millions of dollars. But we also need to be prepared to ratify a strong security guarantee. So if we can do what has to be done next and get Putin to the table and provide the pressure on him and on all those who are buying his oil, we can conclude this war. So we need to be insistent and courageous and determined as politicians, every bit as much as these men and women who have served and sacrificed are. And we must be clear-eyed that the issues discussed, admission to the EU, access to frozen funds, sustained reform within Ukraine, incredible innovation that is transforming the future of conflict, can and should be met, as Steve mentioned, by tariff-free access to the United States markets and with a persistent and sustained, not just cautious, not just hesitant, but celebratory support of the fight for freedom that these Ukrainians have dedicated their lives and hearts to. Thank you.
Senator, thank you. I am struck by how wonderfully upbeat our conversation has been this morning. And I'd like now to turn to the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Poland, Radek Sikorski, a man who is has been a powerful voice and a powerful supporter and indeed proponent of the debate around Ukraine for many years, actually. And you've been very far-sighted in seeing the dangers of President Putin and the risks. I'd like to ask you for your sort of sober assessment, not just celebrating the progress that has been made, but what worries you most?
Thank you, Zanny. In addition to saluting the soldiers, I'd like to salute the ordinary Ukrainians who are going through hell right now. A large proportion of the people of Ukraine live in the type of communist-era housing estates on which I was brought up in communist Poland. And they depend for heat and electricity on these area heating plants. And when the heat and electricity don't come through, you actually have to drain water from the radiators, and then these housing estates become almost unlivable. And you now have an exodus of population from the major population centers, including Kiev. And it's a real danger to Ukraine. These people did nothing to deserve this. Deliberately targeting civilian infrastructure is a war crime. Vladimir Putin is no man of peace. I was very cheered to hear Mr. Witkoff's assessment that we might be close to a deal, and I hope he's right. In the spirit of President Trump's hyper-realism, I'd like to just say what Europe's cards in this are. So last year, we financed not just the war, but also the functioning of the Ukrainian state. The biggest sanction on Russia is the denial of the European market to Russian oil and gas. We have sanctioned the clunker fleet. We have, as the Prime Minister of Belgium said, we have now permanently blocked the Russian assets. We have pledged 90 billion euros to sustain Ukraine for this year and next. We will be providing the majority of funds for Ukraine's reconstruction. We will take some risks in admitting Ukraine into the EU, and it is our security that is at stake. Poland is actually the only NATO and EU country that borders both on Russia and Ukraine. So these are our cards, and here's my one suggestion and one worry. The worry is that if Ukraine doesn't end up within defensible borders as a result of the deal that I hope comes, we will be planting the seeds of the next war. And my final suggestion is that to get to a fair deal, you have to put pressure not on the victim of aggression, but on the aggressor. Thank you very much.
We've spoken a lot about the Ukrainian soldiers who are here, heralded their extraordinary courage. And for those of us who have seen them in Ukraine, it really is remarkable. I thought I'd call on one of them to share perspective at this moment. Yuri Filatov has a job that 3 or 4 years ago didn't exist in any army in the world. He is the unmanned aerial vehicle commander of the 3rd Army Corps. Yuri.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen, ladies. Thank you for this opportunity to come here and to have this message directly from frontline. During these days, we have great conversations with many nations, first of all, European nations, and my main message would be for them. You know, this kind of conversation we have right now is remind me where our conversation during December 2021, probably January 2022, in Ukraine with our friends. And we were also discussing possibilities, what would come and what can happen. Right now we are in a state that international law is not working anymore. And we as Ukrainians know that for a long time. Let's shortly remind how we get here. Ukraine has given 3rd largest nuclear arsenal giveaway for international guarantees. We gave up our missiles to Russia. Actually, they flew later to us again. And then was 2014 and Crimea. And we suppose that, okay, we have guarantees, we have international law. But no, it was not that time. It was an inconvenient topic. And we decided to close eyes for this incident. And actually, this is what we see right now is a chain of events that are linked all together. When international law doesn't work, then strength becomes the only thing that accountable. And I believe that, you know, when I was staying in line at enlistment military office in 2022, being an IT professional for 20 years, I was very angry for ourselves because we were believing in this. And that was not there, in fact. You know, right now, I'm talking to you as a chief unmanned system officer of 3rd Army Corps, the corps that is larger than average European army, the corps that is holding 200 kilometers of front line and which is destroying 1,000 enemies per week. And from this perspective, I have a couple of advices. Just accept the reality. The reality, a new reality, that international law doesn't work. This trench, actually, the only thing that these neo-empires could actually listen to and could understand. It's not, unfortunately, I don't really believe in deals, because deals also a kind of rational, but they are not. And so please accept this. As soon as you accept, you will not be angry on yourself when something would happen to, first of all, to European. None of individual European armies can withdraw for the army we are holding. We are holding right now 1 million+ army at the border of European Union. We are discussing that acceptance of Ukraine to European Union as it is. In fact, I believe Ukrainian army already a part of European security. We entered by fact the European Union. Thank you. So please, be united. United Europe should unite all together, and be strong, because only that matters for Putin's new empire. Thank you.
Zani, can I take this moment to hand over the podium to you, because I have to go and chair the session with the President of Israel in the main WEF hall. President Stubb has a similar commitment, and I think the Prime Minister of Belgium has one. So Zani is going to solo moderate. So now the IQ level has really gone up.
Hardly, but thank you, Fareed. Thank you, President Stubb. Thank you, Prime Minister. And thank you, Yuri Filatov, for that very powerful intervention, and indeed extremely powerful point. Ukraine is already protecting European security. I think that is something absolutely essential for us to know. We've been honored to be joined by 2 more US senators, Senator Murkowski and Senator Tillis. And I wondered, Senator Tillis, whether you would like to offer your perspective on the role that you would like the United States to play, both in the achievement of a peace deal and then in the sustaining of credible security guarantees for Ukraine.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Tom Tillis, Senator from North Carolina. Some of you may not know about North Carolina, but one of the reasons, and actually if I speak about the military service members here, if I shed a tear, it's a tear of gratitude. But we're the home of the Global Response Force. When the President has an emergency somewhere around the world, it's the 82nd Airborne from Fort Bragg that leave and literally can take a city and deploy it anywhere in the world within 96 hours. Down the road from there, we're the home to half of the Marine Corps at Camp Lejeune. I can tell you, gentlemen and ladies of the Ukrainian Army, we are in awe of your courage and what you've done on the battlefield. Will you please stand and let all of us give you a warm round of applause? Please stand. God bless you. God bless your families. And God bless Ukraine. I ran from the other end of Davos to make sure that I could get here, and if I did nothing more, thank you. I was in Kyiv. I was at the Munich Security Conference last year. And then I left there, went to Poland, took the train to Kyiv. And I went out to Bucha. And I think of a number of people in the United States, and many people who are negotiating this peace, need to understand what happened there. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. I live about the same distance from downtown Charlotte as Bucha is from Kyiv. And we all know that month, early after the invasion, the illegal invasion that a lying Putin effected after he said he had a special military operation. It was military exercises. This is the litany of lies of Putin that I hope to get to. But now let's get back to Bucha. Over the course of 30 days, the president of Russia allowed the systematic kidnap, torture, rape, and murder of people in a suburb just 30 minutes outside of Kyiv. This is what that vicious dictator of Russia perpetrated on the poor, innocent civilians of Bucha. I saw this in Bucha, and I went to the memorial. I saw all those lives, more than 500 lost, at the direct command and knowledge of Vladimir Putin. He has systematically done that throughout all of Ukraine. And you all, in spite of that, in spite of the threat to your families, in spite of the murder that's occurred over this weekend while he pretends to want peace, you've stood strong. And you need to understand that the American people are behind you. And we will be behind you. And as a U.S. Senator, I will do everything I can to bring the Article 1 branch behind you. And there will be no lasting peace unless it's something that's ratified by the Article 1 branch. It can't just be a deal. It can't be something that Vladimir Putin won't honor. It has to be something that has the binding force of a treaty and subject to the Article 1 branch. Otherwise, in my opinion, it's not worth the paper it's written on. Vladimir Putin is a liar. Ukraine stands in the breach. After the Munich Security Conference this year, I'll be traveling to Moldova. Thank God, in spite of Russia's attempts to steal that election, democracy won. And this poor country, which incidentally has North Carolina National Guard stationed there, is still hoping that we succeed in Ukraine so that Putin will not continue his march through Moldova, the West Balkans, and try to reestablish the Russian Empire. This is unacceptable. And it's as big a threat to the United States as it is to Europe. For anybody who thinks we have a big ocean that protects us, they don't understand history. They don't understand that Xi Jinping is cheering on Vladimir Putin and hoping that the West makes a mistake. But ladies and gentlemen, we have an opportunity to turn the tide. We have an opportunity to end Putin's ambitions. We have an opportunity to free the Russian people ultimately and have them live in a family of democracies. But in the meantime, our family, the family of democracies in NATO, have to stand strong, and the United States has to unequivocally commit to NATO in its current form and build on it. This is the most important treaty organization in the history of the world. It's a reason why we've had the level of peace that we have had over the last 80 years. And if we want to continue that peace, if we want to continue prosperity, and if we want to continue to spread democracy throughout the world, America must lead. And I'm here to help you, and once again, I want to thank you for your courage. I want to thank you for overnight becoming the most powerful army in Europe. I don't know how you do it. But every night I pray for you, and every night I will pray for you until Ukraine is free. Thank you.
Senator, thank you for those powerful words. Let me now turn to a man who will give us a provocative and broader historical perspective. I don't think I even need to say his name, but Professor Neil Ferguson, what is your take on this? And what are we missing in this conversation this morning?
Thank you, Zanny. I can't match Senator Tillis for rhetorical passion, though I admire the sentiments he just expressed. But I can't help but point out how strange this week has been. This Davos was billed as the spirit of dialogue. But the dialogue that I've been reminded of is the Melian dialogue in Thucydides' history of the Peloponnesian Wars, which you all are familiar with, I'm sure. The key passage is the line in which the Athenians tell the Melians, the strong do what they wish, the weak do what they must. And that's been in some ways the nature of the surreal conversation that has gone on for most of this week, consuming most of our time about Greenland. Passionate speeches about international law, which might have come from the mouths of the Melians, and then realist responses, which certainly recall the Athenians. There are a number of European leaders here who I want to ask a question. When all the fine speeches have been made about support for Ukraine, I would love to understand why the pace of European rearmament is still so slow. Because it's one thing to commit to increase your defense spending to 3% or even 5% of GDP. It's another to actually do something, to procure the weapons, to modernize the defense forces of Europe. Let me take the example of Denmark. Denmark has very nobly delivered a very large proportion of its arms to Ukraine. I think my friend Moritz Schulrich's Kiel Institute has shown that it's probably delivered one of the largest percentages of its own arms to Ukraine, which is noble. But it's rather Melian if you don't then replace those weapons with new ones and modern ones that meaningfully contribute to Europe's defense capabilities. You are so right, Yuri. Ukraine has become the defense force of the European Union. But where are the defense forces of the real European Union member states? It's unfortunate there are no German representatives here, because that's the key issue that nobody has yet touched on. Why is it that despite the fiscal commitments that have been made by the German government, which are of course an enormously important step, the pace of German rearmament is so painfully slow? Eric Schmidt is one of those people who's making a huge effort to scale Ukrainian drone production. Think what a difference it would make if Germany today announced Operation Warp Speed for German rearmament, huge new gigafactories to scale the technology that the Ukrainians have pioneered, so that not just 3 or 4 million drones can be produced, but 10, 15 million drones. Nothing will change Putin's calculus more decisively than a meaningful increase in the pace of European rearmament. Speeches at Davos aren't going to do it, folks, no matter how passionate they are. But real and meaningful German rearmament, and I'll say also European rearmament, that's another matter. So I would urge my European friends, be a little less Melian and a bit more Athenian, and let's send a signal that no Russian dictator will ever be able to misunderstand. Because of your actions, President Putin, you have required, necessitated something that the Germans hoped they would not have to do. And that is a very rapid rearmament, which I hope will lead a general European rearmament. If any of my European friends would like to comment on this, I would very much like to hear what they are doing to bring about Operation Warp Speed and a meaningful European military response to the Russian threat. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Neil. Your European friends are indeed itching to comment on this. Mark Rutte is practically jumping out of his chair. Mark, the floor is yours.
No, but thanks for the challenge. Of course, I speak for NATO, and NATO is 50% US, and the other 50% are the other 31 allies. But amongst them, of course, outside, next to Canada, we have 30 allies in Europe. I agree with your speech when it would be about weapons delivered to Ukraine. I agree what you said about Denmark, and that they have delivered huge amounts of weapons to Ukraine, and many other countries also did. But it is not it's not sustainable in the way it's going on now, because too many countries are not doing enough. There I would agree with your speech. I do not agree with your speech when it comes to the rearmament of Europe, and particularly not Germany. And I'm going to defend them. Germany spent in 2021 70 billion of their annual budget on defense. By 2029, that will have been risen to 160 billion. I opened a factory in Unterlüß in Germany, which is a factory providing with ammunition, 155 caliber. They have built that factory from nothing. There were sheep grazing there to having that factory fully automated opened in 14 months. Normally it would take you 10 years to only get the paperwork in order. Now in 14 months from nothing to a full factory. This is what Germany is doing at the moment. They will massively grow their armed forces. And this is not only Germany, this is many countries. So I agree with you when it comes to support for Ukraine. It has to be more spread. It cannot only be dependent on Norway, the Netherlands, Canada, Denmark, Germany and a couple of other countries. There we need to have the burden sharing. But when it comes to the rearmament, I think what you said is right. We have to do it, but it is happening, and that's the good news.
Prime Minister, you wanted also to add a comment.
Just a short comment, and with a lot of appreciation for Niall and his thoughts and the comparison with the ancient Greek times. I think we have to be aware of one simple thing. One is to be a country at war, and the other one is to be covered under the umbrella of collective security in peace. I'll tell you an example of a small country. We are looking forward for 800,000 men in Ukraine under arms after the peace deal. Croatia is a country of 4 million. During the time of the Greater Serbian aggression and the occupation of our territories between 91 and 95, at the moment when the Croatian military forces liberated 3/4 of the time occupied territories, we had 200,000 men under arms, country of 4 million. And we did it in a speedy manner of 4 days. 4 days. Plus, under the arms embargo. For years, not a single bullet was bought legally. It was all smuggled. More expensive, more difficult, and still managed. That's why the Croatian, unfortunately, unique experience on the European continent is so worthy for Ukraine, especially the part of the peaceful reintegration of the occupied territories which happened in '98. And today, to give you an example, Mark was just in Zagreb last week. We are now undergoing a huge transition from the Eastern military technology to the Western one. And I don't want to enumerate everything that we have done, but we have new European, French fighter jets, new German tanks coming, all sorts of American military equipment, helicopters, plus our own FPV drone production. One small company now became one of the important partners for Ukrainian military companies in assuring that there are enough FPV drones in Ukraine. So I think this is happening. Maybe it's not well emancipated, but it is happening. And, you know, depending on the size of the country, one can only do so much. And my final point, we really are fully aware of the suffering of the Ukrainian people. Our electricity companies, together with the Ukrainian electricity companies, we are now providing necessary equipment which was destroyed and is the one that was used in Ukraine before, and we still have it. So we want to help you to go along through this big suffering during the winter, and a lot of respect to the Ukrainian soldiers and gratefulness for everything you have done for your country and for the freedom of Europe.
Thank you. I have a very long list of people who would like to speak, but I also see that it is 9 o'clock and you all have other engagements to go to. What I would propose is that I think we should end this breakfast by hearing from one more of the Ukrainian heroes. That is what this is ultimately about. So I'd like, if they're still here, to call on Alexei and Nulia. Are you here? And could you give us, to conclude, your assessment of the stakes? What are you fighting for? What are the stakes? What do we all need to leave this breakfast knowing? And Alexei will be speaking in Ukrainian, I think.
I speak in language in Ukraine because, please translate.
Your English is excellent. I think you could continue in English. You could continue in English. It's very good.
I was in captivity, and I can tell you that all abstract ideas disappear there. There's no geopolitics in captivity. There's no any long-term planning in captivity. But it is very clear, a message from Russia in captivity, what is freedom? Freedom is not a word on the slide. It's a possibility to say no despite the torture, act despite the prohibition, the possibility to say truth and not being killed for that. When I came back to Ukraine, I had a clear understanding that the true solution, I had a clear decision that solutions can have the power and force only when there is a real price paid for that. When I saw my mother who became a widow, my children who didn't recognize me, I saw that my brothers and sisters in arms are making an everyday choice to be free without knowing what will come tomorrow. Therefore, I can see that you're well versed in geopolitics. You have a strategy and you're doing everything you can for the security, and I'm pleased to hear that some things are being called as they really are. Our path in life, our experience, therefore, is not about the pain. If each of your individual decisions will be more specific, more swift, and it will bring about security and peace to Ukraine, then I will be able to explain to my children that our path is not about a pain, it's about a sense, a common sense.
Thank you so much. Those were powerful words with which to end on. Thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you, Victor, for once again bringing us all together. Thank you.
Yes.